Some people let power go to their heads, but HOA Karen didn't just let it go to her head. She let it ruin her entire life. Imagine being so obsessed with control that you block an ambulance at the neighborhood entrance, only to discover your own husband is the patient inside. What follows is a story so shocking, so dripping in irony and karma, you'd think it was scripted for a Hollywood drama. But no, this actually happened. And the fallout? Let's just say Karen will never look at a red and blue flashing light the same way again. It all started on a quiet Wednesday morning in our suburban cul-de-sac. I live in a gated community with a small HOA. Reasonable dues, simple rules. Nothing overbearing. At least not until Karen took over as HOA president. Her real name is Margaret, but everyone in the neighborhood started calling her Karen once she stepped into power like it was her God-given destiny. And from day one, she ruled the neighborhood like a queen, enforcing her vision of order and decorum with the passion of a dictator. She changed the parking rules overnight, banned basketball hoops and sidewalk chalk, fined one guy for having aggressively tall grass, and even yelled at a kid for riding his bike too fast on the sidewalk. But her real obsession? The gate. Karen took it upon herself to personally oversee the entrance to our neighborhood. She would often sit in her lawn chair near the gate with a clipboard, watching every car like a hawk. God help you if you forgot your visitor pass or used the wrong entrance code. At first, it was just annoying, but it quickly became outrageous. She once denied access to a UPS truck because it wasn't pre-approved. A pest control van had to wait 40 minutes because she didn't recognize the logo. One poor Uber Eats driver actually left because she made him call the homeowner and then still accused him of suspicious behavior. The gate was meant to be automatic and secure, not Karen-powered and crazy. But nothing compared to what happened on that morning. It was around 7:45 a.m. when the sound of sirens echoed down the street. I was in my driveway grabbing the trash bins when I saw an ambulance flashing its lights, trying to get through the neighborhood gate. The problem? Karen was already there, standing in front of the gate in her robe, arms crossed, clipboard in hand like she was the final boss in a video game. She wasn't moving. I couldn't hear the full exchange, but I could see the paramedics talking urgently through the window. Karen was pointing at something, likely demanding to see ID or confirmation. She even pulled out her phone, probably to call the HOA hotline, which, spoiler alert, was just her other phone. The ambulance lights were flashing, the sirens were on, and she was still arguing. I walked over to see what was going on. One of the EMTs opened the window and shouted to her, "Ma'am, we have an emergency call inside the neighborhood. We need to get through now." And Karen, in full power trip mode, replied, "If you're not on the pre-approved access list, I can't let you in. You need to follow the rules like everyone else." I couldn't believe it. "Karen, it's an ambulance," I said, stepping closer. "Who cares about an access list?" She scoffed at me. "If we let just anyone in, what's the point of having a gate? I'm protecting the community." That's when the EMT's voice got serious. "Ma'am, the patient is losing consciousness. If we don't get to him in the next few minutes, he might not make it. Move." Karen folded her arms tighter and said, "Then maybe your dispatcher should have called ahead. This is private property." I was stunned. Everyone was stunned. And then, just as the EMT was about to drive through anyway and possibly knock her out of the way, another car sped up from the inside of the neighborhood. It screeched to a halt right behind Karen. Out jumped her neighbor, Tom, a guy in his late 60s who lived 3 doors down from her. He was red in the face, panicking. "That ambulance is for David! Karen, it's your husband!" Her face froze. I've never seen someone go from smug to speechless so fast in my life. She dropped her clipboard and turned ghost white. "What?" "He collapsed during his morning walk," Tom continued. "We were just walking the dogs. He clutched his chest and fell. I called 911, let them through." Karen stumbled backward, and the EMT didn't wait for permission this time. The ambulance peeled through the gate, nearly knocking over the barrier arm. Karen just stood there, trembling, muttering, "No one told me. Why didn't someone tell me?" Tom looked at her like she had grown horns. "What does it matter? You blocked an ambulance." They rushed David to the hospital. I found out later he had suffered a major heart attack. one that could have easily turned fatal had they arrived just minutes later. Thankfully, the paramedics were absolute pros and managed to stabilize him. He survived, barely. But the fallout for Karen? That was just beginning. Words spread like wildfire. By noon, everyone in the neighborhood was talking about it. Her power trip had nearly killed her own husband. Parents were furious. Elderly residents were scared. The HOA board, which had mostly been filled with her puppets, now had no choice but to act. Residents started organizing a petition to remove her from her position. Some even demanded the HOA itself be restructured. Within 48 hours, an emergency board meeting was called, and more than 60 homeowners showed up. That's more than we'd had in any HOA meeting in the past 5 years. Karen tried to defend herself. She stood up with trembling hands and gave some nonsense about miscommunication and procedures needing to be followed for everyone's safety. She even said, "I didn't know it was my husband. If I had known, I would have let them in immediately." That didn't help. One woman stood up and shouted, "So it's okay to risk my husband's life but not yours?" Another man chimed in, "This was just the final straw. You've turned this place into a police state. Enough is enough." And that was it. The vote passed unanimously. Karen was stripped of her presidency and banned from any future leadership role in the HOA. But the consequences didn't stop there. A few weeks later, the local paper picked up the story. It ran under the headline, "HOA President Blocks Emergency Response. Own Spouse Nearly Dies." The article didn't use her name, but everyone around town knew who it was about. She became infamous. David, her husband, was released from the hospital after a lengthy stay. I saw him once while he was out on a walk, this time with a cane. I asked him how he was doing. He smiled weakly and said, "Better now. At least they let me out of the house." I didn't press, but the way he said it, it felt like more than a joke. Eventually, Karen and David sold their house. Rumor has it he pushed for the move. They left quietly, no goodbye party, no farewell email. Just one last moving truck and a very, very quiet exit. The new HOA board changed several rules immediately. They removed Karen's visitor pre-approval system, restored access for delivery trucks, and permanently locked the manual override that allowed someone to stand in front of the gate to stop it. And as for the rest of us, we started breathing a little easier. Parents let their kids play in the driveway again. Neighbors waved to each other without the fear of a clipboard showing up. And the gate? It works just fine, without Karen standing in front of it. So if there's a lesson in all this, it's simple. Power, when misused, doesn't just hurt others. It can come back to hurt you in the most unexpected way. Karen spent so long trying to control everything that she ended up almost losing the one person who actually loved her. And all because she couldn't get out of her own way.